What up, everybody? Today, as I'm looking through stuff, one of the things that I've been curious about is wisdom. Over the years, it's been a big focus for understanding, partly because um, I was one of those kids that I remember stories. Um, I remember how things flow. And so I could remember a story that a professor told, or a teacher told, or a friend told, not word for word, but the gist of the entire story, which made it really great for me as a test taker because as long as there weren't a bunch of numbers, I was fine. Um, but I was also a loudmouth kid who tended to put his foot in his mouth more often than not. And so when I got a little bit past that, I began to want to know the difference between having knowledge and being wise. Um, and so when I was deployed, and I've shared this before, back in 2004, I read through Proverbs multiple times. And there is a huge theme of gaining wisdom. And so, as I was looking at wisdom, as I was trying to figure out what it means to be wise, especially right now where it seems like everybody's point of view, they're saying there's this wise and the other one's dumb or foolish, as we use the more biblical terms. I thought there's got to be some opportunity, some specifics in Scripture that help us to understand the difference between what is wise and what is not. And so I have two pretty fantastic books for this that are giant. The Strong's Exhaustive Concordance, and then the Brown Drivers Briggs Hebrew to English Lexicon. Lots of seminary words, lots of, took hours to learn how to use these books alone. But what I did today was I went to Proverbs, and then I looked up the Hebrew words for wisdom, and it was pretty cool because based off of let's see, the word for wisdom most often used um, in Proverbs is this root shakam or hakam with the if you know the it's not properly pronounced. And it says it's based off of wisdom. But what's kind of cool is when you look into how the word is formed and then where it is used, you get a great picture of some of the things that bring wisdom. And one of the passages that just kind of blew me away this morning in understanding wisdom was out of Proverbs 12. And so in Proverbs 12, let's see, verse 18. Rash words are like sword thrusts, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. Rash words are like sword thrusts, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. One of my guilty pleasures, if I'm honest, is watching a show called Naked and Afraid, where they send survivalists out into some of the harshest climates with nothing but like one single tool that they get to pick. So some of them bring a machete, some of them bring a fishing net, some of them, they each pick something else. All of the naked parts are covered with blurring out, but the point is that this is a very hard time. And I was watching this one episode where the two who were out there one of them was doing a lot of work and the other one was blaming the other one for not doing what they wanted. And it was really clear that the person who, at least as you're watching it, and it's also really one of those times where I'm so glad that I have air conditioning and live without bugs climbing where I sleep. But these two were fighting over this like amount of work they were doing, and at one point the guy just kind of stops in the middle of this argument and goes, "If you would just humble yourself, you would be exalted." And that was really cool because in that moment, and I was like, he just tossed scripture and pretty strong wisdom scripture at someone who was mad and at someone who, at least up to that point in the episode, was really having a hard time. He was not considering his feelings, thoughts, expertise at all. But the thing is, she walked away, and it struck her. It struck her that she had been acting in a way that she would not have wanted to be seen acting. And she did. She humbled herself. She kind of just got to this point where she goes, "Okay, I'm sorry. Let me learn from you." And for like the next 7 days of this 3-week trip, they worked spectacularly together. And the point of this is that the words that he used invited her to find healing with that, because the things that she was railing against and that had gone on in her life had led her to this sense of defensiveness instead of listening. And so I thought, as I'm reading this, I'm just reminded that, it's still tempting to me to want to yell and point out all the ways I can see that other people are being foolish, but if it doesn't bring healing, it's not wise. It's just information. And the last thing we need right now is another person who feels fairly righteous or self-righteous, just hollering at people. And so that's something I'd invite you to contemplate today, that the words of the wise bring healing. The words of the wise bring healing. May you find a moment to dwell on the wisdom of God that brings healing, that brings wholeness, that says you have infinite worth, and that invites you to grow closer to the Lord, to care for others, to be a better person. Go with God.